So Caleb Williams just hinted at the identity of their new head coach of the Chicago Bears. And we're still in this coaching search. And I want to talk about multiple takes being given by Caleb. Let's talk through who's favored to get this job. So let's start with Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman. Multiple reports have surfaced that Bears CEO Kevin Warren, he's very interested in hiring Freeman as their head coach. Chicago has requested an interview with the 39-year-old coach. And Caleb Williams had a really unexpected take on his potential hire that he gave during an appearance on the St. Brown Brothers podcast yesterday. I'm going to go to this story on SI.com, really read the story in its entirety. It's a great piece. On that podcast, he seemed to be really asserting himself regarding this coaching search. And with that, he also has zero interest in towing the company line here. And I don't believe this is just a player spouting off. He's also speaking as a person who knows exactly where the front office is leaning and who the front runner is. See what you think. Let's read between the lines here about Ben Johnson as well. There's some real ties here to the team. Freeman was a former Bears draft pick, and he's definitely intriguing. He has the Fighting Irish one game away from a national championship. Warren is also reported to be really interested, almost enamored about getting him in for an interview. And here's what Caleb had to say when asked if Freeman should come to Chicago. I would stay put. This is Williams talking about Freeman staying at Notre Dame. He built everything over there. But if the Bears interview him, we'll see. We'll see if he takes it. So it looks like Caleb has absolutely no interest in towing the company line to attract Marcus Freeman as the head coach, regardless of how Warren feels. And he also made some other comments that point to Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, him being the preferred coach. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that Caleb has the power to choose his own coach. That's definitely not happening here. But you got to think his opinion has some weight and that he knows as an insider where the Bears are leaning. And I personally don't think having a guy who's never coached in the NFL, having that guy use Chicago as the guinea pig, I don't think that's the way to go. And Chicago's never brought a college coach directly up into the organization. It's never happened in 95 years. And the hire was really doubtful to happen in the first place. He also signed a $10 million contract extension at Notre Dame. But it's really interesting here about the picture that I think Caleb's painting in the media. And to further paint this picture, on the same podcast yesterday, he was asked about hiring Ben Johnson. His response, so if it's Ben, then, Williams trailed off with a huge smile on his face. It's about 3 minutes into the podcast. If you get to the St. Brown Brothers podcast, check it out. You know what I mean, he continued with. If it's not Ben, then it is what it is. So he then spelled out his ideal coach. Strong-minded, a leader of men. I think that that's a cool thing about what y'all got over there in Detroit in head coach Dan Campbell. Selfishly, I want an offensive-minded guy so I can build with him and be with that coach for the next, this is important, 19, 17, 15 years. I can also learn and grow and things like that from him. And now, as of Wednesday afternoon, the Bears have completed or scheduled 11 interviews for their head coaching job, including, it speaks into this, including Johnson, as well as NFL head coaches, former NFL head coaches, Pete Carroll, Ron Rivera, and Mike McCarthy, some old guys. I mean, this says something, right? A bit more. Williams also said that he would be happy with an overall grand scheme coach if he had some of the right qualities. He wants a coach who is strong-minded, a leader of men once again, someone who can bring together a championship-winning team. That's the only goal I have, Williams said, of winning a championship. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit. An offensive-minded coach and the time span to be together, 15, 17, 19 years. Now, Caleb is showing us that he's not about Pete Carroll. He's not about Ron Rivera, neither am I, or even Mike McCarthy. He's 63 years old, and maybe he knows the Bears aren't either. Maybe this is just a telegraph of what he already knows is happening within the organization. And this was also a veiled swipe at Matt Eberflus, mentioned several times, huge emphasis on a coach that has good time management. So Kind of looking at the lay of the land, Ben Johnson was just interviewed by the Bears on January 11th. What's up, Dante? He's my co-host. And let's see here. Where were we here? And it's kind of telling to hear these players talk together. And Detroit Lions wideout Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he knows that Johnson is leaving. I think he knows that the Bears are the top team for his services. I mean, these players know what's happening. They aren't kept in the dark. And this is to hear from Amon-Ra. So, I told Ben, Caleb is bleeping trash. Like, you don't want to go there. I said also, Caleb's a diva. He's a selfish mother. He's going to want everything on his own. Thinks he's the smartest guy in the world. Not coachable. And Amon-Ra's tactic also went for Johnson, who has been the target of numerous head coaching interviews. If anyone's going to ask me, how's Ben? Ben's trash too. He can't call plays. So kind of a funny give and take there. But even more things are popping up regarding Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. The Bears, they have not named a new head coach yet, but Caleb Williams does have a new phone number. And this is kind of a funny add-on. That's because this past Friday, a wily prankster, I guess you would say, someone posed as Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, got a hold of Williams' old number and texted him that he was going to be taken over as the Bears' next head coach. And the prank briefly got Williams. I mean, hook, line, and sinker. He admitted that later. He even reached out to Lions receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, a fellow USC alum, we forget that, to really get Johnson's number so he could check to see if it was Johnson who indeed texted him. St. Brown was apparently at dinner at the time, didn't get back to Williams right away, but soon enough, the jig was up. The pranksters, they were kids, not an NFL offensive coordinator. Got Williams on a FaceTime call and revealed their prank. By now, the prank text and FaceTime call, they've made the rounds all over social media, so it's not exactly a secret. But the text actually started with, "Hey, Caleb, this is Ben Johnson. Just wanted to reach out ahead of time before it gets released to the media. I will be taking the head coach job. Very excited to work with you in the future. Great things." To which Williams replied, "Actually, Ben?" Like, Caleb was excited thinking Ben Johnson was the new head coach of the Chicago Bears. And who can blame him? I mean, we're looking at Johnson. He's a bright offensive mind. You can't argue with that. And Williams actually admitted getting Johnson or someone like him would be ideal on that podcast with the St. Brown brothers. Now, I'm not saying once again that Caleb has the power to pick the coach, but man, you got to think that he's the top priority to develop on this team, and his opinion carries weight, and he knows what's happening in Hallis Hall. And I think he feels the need to illustrate also that Eberflus's representation of what happened at the end of the Thanksgiving game, total fabrication. The guy was trying to spin it to save his job. And Jimmy Johnson at the time, if you remember, he supported this to his Fox colleagues. And I'm just going to quote from him because I think it's important to get this out here. In 70 years of coaching at all three levels, I've never seen dysfunction that costs a team the opportunity to win the game like this. Obviously, he's got a rookie quarterback, but when Flus saw that they were off track and there was dysfunction, he should have called the timeout. He says he wanted to communicate to the rookie quarterback to throw an out route, stop the clock, then call the timeout. It was never communicated. Now, I don't want to spend any more time on the shortcomings of Flus. Total misrepresentation of what really happened and his nonsense press conferences, his lack of accountability. But this needed to be said too. And Caleb's pushing back on that as well. So let's move forward. I mean, looking at the lay of the land, Vegas and Tom Brady, they can try to cheat their way through this process all they want. They can wave stacks of money as well. But they've got an absolute mess of a roster. No quarterback or the draft resources to get one. On top of that, this is one of the weakest quarterback classes in memory, even if they did have a high pick. So unless Ben Johnson is absolutely blinded by the charms of Tom Terrific, or he's simply wanting to get paid out of this, Chicago is still his top spot. And I firmly believe that. We're going to continue to wait. It's going to be at least 5 days until he can have an in-person interview scheduled. And if he's our guy, let's get a contract negotiated. Don't allow any more competition. Get this final Rooney Rule job interview out of the way. That needs to be done. And man, I think it's smooth sailing. I still think that Ben Johnson is going to be our head coach just because of the match with our quarterback. And you guys let me know what you think. It's not about who I want at this point, it's who I think is going to be head coach. And I think Ben Johnson's going to be coming to town. You guys bear down. Thank you for spending this off season with this channel. And we're going to keep giving you daily updates about what's going on with this head coaching search and beyond. Bear down, and we'll see you soon.